Hi everyone, welcome back to China Freedom File. Today I'm going to continue to talk about this forced cross demolition campaign engineered by the Chinese Communist Party's really chief, President Xi Jinping. And it was started, as I just mentioned last time, in a city called Wenzhou City, Zhejiang Province in southeast of China. As we have mentioned, the reason, the direct trigger for the forced cross demolition campaign was when then Party Secretary of Communist Party of Zhejiang Province, Mr. Xia Baolong, was visiting an area nearby Wenzhou and saw a huge kind of independent church building with a very tall cross on the rooftop of the church building. It was a big church called Sanjiang Church. And the church had already existed for a number of years. And in fact, that church was recognized by the local government, and including the local city and district Communist Party leaders. When the church was established and finished, then the local government leaders, including the Communist Party leaders in their district, even sent flowers, went there, and congratulation and celebrate. And the local newspaper even recognized that church as one of the kind of proud local kind of iconic building. For that area. So it was also officially recognized as a model building. And then all of a sudden, when Xia Baolong, the party secretary, this treasured Dragon Xia, when he visited there and saw that cross, he was deeply offended, and he basically started asking this question, said, is this still part of the Chinese Communist Party's dominant field? And he questioned why the Christian cross is being allowed to be installed with such a visibility and kind of prominence in that area. And then that started basically the initial campaign. The Sanjiang Church was reached by the Communist Party officials, pressured by the party secretary, Dragon Xia, to take down that cross from the rooftop of the church building. It was like a gigantic, like cathedral-like building, and took the believers' donation of several million worth of US dollars, and yet the local government wanted to take down the cross first. So initially, the believers and even the church leaders resisted, and then the Communist Party sent hundreds of government workers and public security officers made a first attempt to try to have a forceful destruction of that cross. But because over 1,000 believers heard about that in advance, so with many elderly Christians and basically had a sit-in in front of the church building and surrounded the church building, and with prayers. It was not successful, so the government was not able to destroy the cross from that church initially. And then in in May of 2014, the church, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, the government ordered thousands of military police backed by a lot of workers with bulldozers and dynamites. Took them from 5 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock, a little over 8 o'clock in the evening. Instead of taking down the church's cross, as initially they claimed to do, the whole church just was crumbled and leveled and flattened, and basically every corner of the church was buried with dynamite and bombed. So that the total destruction of that huge cathedral-like gigantic Sanjiang church in Wenzhou opened the chapter of the whole cross demolition campaign. First in the citywide in Wenzhou, and then extended to the whole Zhejiang province, and then later on, of course, extended to all over China. So basically, by 2016, over 3,000 church crosses were recorded by China Aid, were already forcefully demolished and destroyed, and some were even burned. And many believers were beaten up and wounded for simply went to the church building to defend their cross. And some church leaders, these are, some are government even sanctioned church leaders, including one Christian couple who were sentenced to 12 years and 14 years respectively for defending the church cross from being demolished. And one of the most prominent, even Three Self-Patriotic Movement church leaders, Pastor Joseph Gu, Gu Yuese, Yuese Gu, he was serving as the vice chairman of the national level of China's Christian Council, CCC. It's a kind of a parallel organization with the Three Self-Patriotic Movement. It's a TSPM organization. And so he was also the chairman of the CCC of Zhejiang province, the Chinese Christian Council at the time. So he kind of broke his silence, and after sending letters and making phone calls and really appealing to the central government leaders and the national leaders of the TSPM and CCC, ask them to intervene. And he called this is just an unnecessary, provocative act against the believers' wishes, and the church cross is not really posing any threat for the so-called public safety, or not a hazard. And many of these crosses had been there for decades. And he also said this will further alienate the kind of united front between the Chinese Communist Party and the Christian believers, and many even Catholic churches and clergymen, the priests, the fathers, even took to the street and holding a cross, basically during their march on the street, and basically appealing and asking the government leaders to have mercy, not to tear down this cross. And so Pastor Joseph Wu is a high rank, again, the church, the government sanctioned church leader. He made a very direct appeal finally to the issued in public, and a lot of international media kind of quoted what he said in that appeal. Basically, he asked the government to stop this barbaric, what he called the barbaric campaign of demolition of crosses from the Christian churches. And then you can imagine what the Chinese Communist Party's response. To them, of course, it was a kind of a rebellious act from their own. They think all the TSPM, CCC church leaders are their own children, and are their controlled, totally controlled product. And so all of a sudden, when Joseph Gu make this public announcement, the Communist Party officials was so upset, they immediately put him and his wife under house arrest. And then they announced that his leadership post was removed, and then they manipulate the Chinese Christian Council of Zhejiang Province and remove his leadership post from there, and even revoked his pastoral license, and said he's no more qualified to be a pastor. And then the Communist Party used the Public Security Bureau, started a totally baseless and trumpeted investigation, claiming him of committing financial fraud, and on and on. So that shows the true color of course, the Chinese Communist Party on their policy of religion, and also it shows how vulnerable, how timid of this TSPM and CCC organizations. They are nothing but, really puppets in the eyes of the Chinese Communist Party leaders. They don't have any independence. Their personnel can be destroyed at any moment notice of the Communist Party leaders. So their even a Christian servant title, as a pastor, as a priest, could be lost and being revoked any moment if the Communist Party leader is not pleased with them. So this dragon Xia Baolong had been a real kind of a pioneer. He then got a nickname for his relentless kind of evil campaign of destruction of crosses. He's named as the party secretary of the demolition of crosses. And at the same time, the Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping has been prepared very obviously and clearly to extend this campaign, the successful, what he called, campaign of demolition of crosses. And since Mr. Xia Baolong, the Dragon Xia, is well perceived as one of the closest confidants, most loyal comrades, subordinates of Party Secretary and President Xi Jinping. Even with the whole international media focusing, condemning unanimously, almost near unanimously, by the freedom-loving international civil society and government leaders, and asked the Chinese Communist Party to stop this barbaric campaign. With many images of on video and photo. I mean, China 8, we have lots of received many images. I mean, this is the image. I mean, showing, of course, those the demolition campaign, and we have received hundreds of thousands of images showing the different churches, the cross were being, how they were being forcefully demolished. And there's some effort by some overseas pro-China or kind of religious organization leaders, initially claiming, oh, well, that is just some reflection of a misunderstanding of the cross or of the church by the local party or naive government leaders. It does not represent the national government intention. And or some overseas even organizations who even are used to do, I mean, to serve the persecuted church, even claim, oh, well, because the cross in Zhejiang was too tall, was too big, it was too giant, and the government may have a legitimate justification to tear down these crosses. And because the Zhejiang provincial government and the party secretary and party committee did issue some public statement, said that this is part of effort to beautify Zhejiang. They called 1 year beautification of Zhejiang campaign, and they even demolish a few temples, a few other folk religious sites, but most of them are Catholic and Protestant Christian churches are impacted in the name of this beautification of Zhejiang, and claiming this cross posed security hazard threat, or claiming that some of the church buildings or part of the church building were constructed without kind of permit. So they want to even tell the United States or European countries who filed a complaint to the Chinese government, and they said, okay, even in the U.S. you have zoning laws. You can't, build a church building without zoning permit. It sounded like very reasonable if they use this argument, except that most of these churches had absolutely secured their building permit, and I just mentioned, the Sanjiang Church was even named as the local landmark symbol building, and the local party secretaries even praised that project. So why all of a sudden it became a hazard? Why all of a sudden it negatively impact the beautification of the church, of the local community? Why all of a sudden the cross was too tall, too big? Why all of a sudden this church, part of the church building became illegal constructions? So these are totally excuses by the Communist Party as part of the crackdown against very fundamental religious freedom. And so the Zhejiang province basically had their campaign until 2017, and then from 2017 until now, actually, that there are thousands of church crosses were being demolished, destroyed, or burned nationwide, from Beijing to Henan province, to Hainan Island, to Shandong province, to Jiangsu, to even as extensive as the border area of Burma. Even the Communist Party pressure the Kachin minority autonomous government next to the Yunnan province, South China, to tear down the crosses of the church building the local Christians built. So that was a totally kind of a major campaign against the basic religious freedom of believers. So the Communist Party is not even satisfied with the demolition of crosses inside its own controlled territory, and they export this campaign into Burma. And even in Africa, several countries, we met with one Christian sister from one of the African countries. And she told us after President Xi Jinping's one visit to that country, and that country started the forced demolition of crosses campaign. This certainly kind of being handed over a handbook of cross demolition from President Xi Jinping after one state visit on how to effectively demolish crosses from the rooftop of the church building. And 2008 alone, I mean, we have, of course, these photos, the images, you can tell this is January 9th, this huge church called Lampstand Church in Shanxi province in Linfen was bombed and demolished. This church is a house church, kind of with 30 some 1,000 believers, and the church has affiliate planted other churches. Altogether, that church called the Linfen Church has about 100,000 members. Then in January 9th, 2018, that church was bombed and destroyed. And you have seen August 13th at Changjiang Catholic Church in Shandong province. So the capital city of Jinan. So the Catholic Church was demolished, and you can see some iconographies. And December the 4th, you have a Beiqiao Church in Henan province was bombed and demolished. I mean, which country would use dynamite and bombs to bomb very peaceful church buildings and churches? On July 17th, this is the Liangwang Catholic Church in Shandong province again, was forcefully demolished, and I mean, you can tell reduced to rubble. And August 20th, the Christian church nursing home in Congtai district Handan, this Hebei province, was destroyed, and you can tell. And this, the cross was burnt with ash. Like ashes on September 5th. This Guangcai Church in Henan province in Nanyang was destroyed. You can see the Bibles and hymn books were burned. On. You see, so this church, you can see, the cross was being burnt with big flames. That is the Holy Grace Christian church in Henan, and you can see the big bulldozer and this largest church in Henan province. In the city of Xinyang was demolished. This Catholic church had 3 crosses, and each one of them was also demolished. This Catholic church in Yining, in Xinjiang, Uyghur Autonomous Region. So you can see on. So you can see the cross after demolition. Was the broken cross was laid. Fell on the ground, and you can see the. So from Chongqing, from different, Jiangxi province, Xutang. So this is a totally barbaric act. As I'm recording this segment, I just learned even as late as June 28th, there was a Catholic believer couple. They were attacked this past Sunday. Basically on Sunday, on the June 28th. The local the public security officers basically gave them 2 options. Said, okay, we found in your house you have some Catholic crucifix, cross, and with some iconography on your wall. So you can only choose one of this thing. Either you keep your iconography and the crucifixion on your wall, or you have to lose your low-income family kind of compensation from the government. So that's the economic sanction for holding a cross, a crucifix, or iconography on your wall of your private homes. So I was so touched when I read the kind of pledge letter handwritten by this Catholic couple. They said, after prayer, since the government gave us this option, and by the grace of the Heavenly Father, our Lord, we chose to keep the cross, keep the crucifix, keep the iconography on our home, and we know we will lose the government economic aid for the low-income family like ours. We voluntarily to do this. So this is the spirit, I think, of the cross, that when in the book of Hebrews, when we are taught that if the Son of Man has to go through the Golgotha by bearing the cross on his shoulder and suffering, and for our salvation, for our sins, and for our redemption, and why we have to escape from that. So I just want to encourage you, despite of this campaign, and the Satan had never won this kind of campaign, and it will never win, because in the end, look at this cross, and Jesus had been resurrected, and he will be always, according to his promise. He is with us forever, no matter what the political authority, institutions, or any other earthly vehicles to go with his people. He promised he will never leave them nor forsake them. And may the Lord continue to bless all of you. Thank you for your attention.
Order your copy of this program from the GLC bookstore by calling the numbers or visiting the website on your screen. Please include the program number when ordering.